Ooh, that looks tasty. Support for Boards and Brews comes from Sovereignty. Play board games in a 3D environment on any device. Play smarter. Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another episode of Boards and Brews, and today I am joined by Patrick Hepner, one half, dare I say, the better, more attractive half of the Level Up Board Game podcast. And before we jump into anything, the first thing we have to talk about is what is your brewed beverage today, sir?
Oh, just coffee. Just so my wife travels for work, and every now and then she'll bring home a coffee from somewhere. And she's working in DeKalb. I don't know. It's somewhere in Michigan. Where are you working? She's not listening. You put that in the outtakes.
Wow, we went off. That is the fastest we've gone off track
Yep.
ever. So just
Let me give it a
coffee
reason.
from DeKalb, maybe Michigan.
Somewhere around there, but she'll bring home a coffee, and it's like a white chocolate cherry coffee, which I don't care for flavored, but this one's actually really good. So glad to have it. And it'll keep me up through all this.
And
It's
as
late here in Pennsylvania.
yeah, it's almost 10 p.m. there,
We're getting there.
and it's cold there, so that makes it feel much later, I'm sure.
Got cold
Eh,
early this year.
No, thank you. And so I have just a Fort Point KSA, which I usually have on this. Keep trying to get them to sponsor me because it's a local brewery, and they keep not
Hmm.
doing it.
Oh,
First, the rapid fire questions
sure.
everybody gets the first time they come on, and that is, who the crap are you? What is your channel? What is your shtick? And how and why did you get started reviewing board games?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, who are we? We're the Level Up Board Game Podcast. We've been around only for a year now. It'll be officially 1 year in 13 days from the time of recording. So we are, relatively new. And I keep saying that, but a year in, I'm like, wow, we're well established compared to some of the faces and names I'm seeing. But very young, very new to it. We have 40 episodes produced so far, and I am, as you said, one half of the show. The other half being my co-host Scott Walton. King Scott, as we call him. He plays the role of the king at the Renaissance Festival. And you know what? We wanted to put together a show, and Scott was someone that I knew that I, could trust to have really solid input on games. So
And show
Scott,
up every
it
week.
was. Uh, yeah. So, who are we? Level Up Board Game Podcast, and that is our channel. So the shtick, that's where things get kind of interesting. Will we? Okay, so I'm playing board games with this group that I like to call the Lobsters. We worked at a certain seafood restaurant with lobster in the title. We were all waiters there, and I'd have them over for board games, and every month or every couple weeks, sometimes we'd get together, we'd play, and I'm listening to other podcasts because in my spare time, now that my wife brings home the bacon, she said, "You stay at home." I was like, "Okay." I fix up rental properties. We have a couple houses and plumbing, drywall, all that stuff. It takes a lot of time. So I put on podcasts while I'm working on these houses, and I start thinking, you know what? I could do this. Or you ever find yourself you're listening to a show in the car, and they'll say something, and you kind of start arguing with your radio. You're like, no, it's because you're playing it wrong. You're not supposed to do it that way. You should have gone this way. And you start to think, well, why couldn't I do this? Now, I'll be the first to admit, neither Scott nor I are pros at this. We haven't played every game. I feel like we have a lot of listeners that think that we know a lot more than we actually do.
Well, apropos to what we were talking about, we sent each other, I don't know, between the two of us, a list of 30 games, and
Hmm.
there was one we had both played. So clearly, neither of us actually know what we're doing.
We played a few more on each of our lists, I think, but it was like, okay, what's one that we can both speak to in some sort of depth? And that's why I went with a safe one when I picked the one that I did. I won't spoil that. We'll save that for later. So the original idea was I was going to have the lobsters join me, and I was the most, we'll say, fluent in board gaming. They were like the games that they had played because I had showed them how to play. Beyond that, it was okay. They've played Risk, Monopoly, some of your standard fare. Maybe one of them had played Catan, and they've since played a lot on their own. That I haven't introduced them to, but I thought, okay, we're going to make our show level up, kind of like an RPG type thing where we're all level zero gamers, and join us on the journey. And our shtick to get to the meat of the question was going to be, if you're listening to a show now, you hear someone who's been in the, we'll say, in the industry for 10 years. And when they talk about a game, they say, oh, it's a lot like Seven Wonders, but you mix in the mechanics from this game and, incorporate a little bit of press your luck, like what you see in insert another game. And I'm like, well, you know what? If I'm brand new to gaming, maybe I've only been gaming for a year, this doesn't relate to me. It'd be kind of cool to have a show that's new people. Yeah, we're probably not going to be attracting someone that's been gaming for forever, but there's a lot of new board gamers in the last few years. And I thought, well, this would be a nice way to target them and sort of, have them join us on the ride. Like, I played this and I got in a win. I leveled up. So we had some, we'll say, some grandiose ideas with where we wanted to take that, and learned really quickly that it's hard to get four people with four different microphones in one room and have the sound quality work and have the content consistent every 2 weeks. Long story short, that didn't work. So it was mulligan time, and I was like, okay, who do I know? King Scott, of course, King Scott. So, hey, Scott, what do you think about it? And he's like, I'm in. So, Scott and we met
And
up
I
and
mean, I
we
have to assume that as he's royalty, you had to send your butler with a pillow and white gloves with the invitation on that,
Mhm.
as I
Well,
assume.
I arrived on a Clydesdale to his castle, and he made me kiss his ring before he would agree to do any of this. Now he was on from the get go, and like I think I don't know if we got it on record or not, but he's been gaming a lot longer than I have, and a lot more different styles of games. So I thought, this is going to be perfect. So the shtick kind of became, well, we still have this really cool Nintendo-like music. We're still going to play the RPG. So we've since picked up a couple of contributors, and they're, one's the Archmage. We have a king, we have an Archmage, we have an Explorer. Scott said I'm going to be just Patrick, so I'm just Patrick. I don't get a cool title, but we use like old, like
You
eight
need a
bit
dung
looking.
merchant. Like,
Scott, I'm not going to be the dung merchant. I hope he
I'm just
doesn't
saying,
listen
you
to
need one.
this. What? Were there actually merchants? How would you sell that?
Well, I mean, I assume you have a cart and you fill it with dung, and you have your pitchfork, and you have someone who's even lamer than you, who you say, "Hey, Fred, load it into his wagon." I don't know.
Well,
Ask the king; he should know.
I guess the shtick now, what with Scott being on the show, is more that we wanted to sort of embrace the idea that not everyone that listens to podcasts knows of the big backlog of games that some of the we'll say better, the podcasts that, quite frankly, have been doing it a lot longer and are far more interesting than us talk about. So we wanted to make the show like, we're going to talk about new games, but we're going to talk about old games, and we're going to talk about really old games, and we're going to talk about upcoming games, just a little bit in each. Then we got Andrew on board, and Andrew incorporates the Academy segment. He gives us a little bit of like a history in the game. He actually he has his own website. He's from aspermyability.com. He's been working on getting a podcast up and running. He's working on a book as well, so we're glad to have him. My friend Josh from down in North Carolina, the southern part of North Carolina, or the northern part of South Carolina. He hopped on board. He wanted to do the Lost Loot segment. So he does games that, you know, they're outside of the top 1,000 on BGG, something that you're not going to hit. Like, give you an idea with Lost Loot. I came to a point where I have 3 or 4 big podcasts. I don't know if you want me to say names, but like
Yeah, you
the
can name
regulars.
drop all you want.
So everybody's heard the Dice Tower. Everybody's heard Secret Cabal. If you like podcasts, Shut Up and Sit Down has their podcast. And
Ooh, you know what? I've had people from 2 out of those 3 on this show.
okay, they're excellent. I am a listener. I subscribe. I love their shows. But there are times where, and listeners, you've had this happen where you have your podcast that you super like, and their episode comes out on a Tuesday, and they're going to talk about Unfathomable. You're like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then the next day, it's Blue Pig, Pink Pig, and let's. Oh, well, they're doing Unfathomable too. All right. Then the next day, your other podcast is doing. What do you know? It's Unfathomable again. Like, they all want to get that. Oh, what's the hot game? What's the hot game? And I don't blame them. We try and do that too. I'm just like, we want to also be the show that's like, our first review was Shadows over Camelot. We're going way, way back. Like, hey, if you just joined gaming, if you're new to this hobby, here's one that you might want to look at. And it's not always the barrage of here's what's new. So we wanted to play up that shtick. And then we end each episode with here's how I leveled up be it in gaming or in real life, so that we could somehow tie in the name of the show.
And I'm going to share this with you. I don't know if you've seen this before, but it made me think of it. So you start at level 0. Have you ever heard of the webcomic Goblins?
I have not.
Well, it's worth. I haven't looked at it in years, but it's worth checking out. The whole premise is a bunch of goblins like, we're tired of dying. Let's take a class level.
There
By
you
taking
go.
player class levels, we're now heroes, and now we can't die. And it goes from there. So you made me think of it.
Similar idea. Yeah, we're new to this. We're not great, but you know,
And
hold our
they
hand,
go
join us
through,
in the
and
journey.
yeah, they of course this webcomic, like they meet the guy named Min Max, who
Of course.
is at one point like, we're only level, you're only level 2. How can you do this? Oh no, I gave it my ability to read so I could get an extra feat. Like stuff like that.
Really
Uh,
fast now because I can't read.
yeah, so check that out. So just one of the things that I appreciate, because there are times when everyone's talking about the same thing, and as I go through, well, I do the same thing you do. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but every now and then I'll jump over and I'll listen to an audiobook for a while. I'll get one
Hmm.
from the library. Libraries have great audiobook programs, but you only get them for 2 weeks, and if it's a book that's popular, if you don't finish, you're waiting for a very long time
Hmm.
sometimes to get it back. So but then when I come back after I finish a book, then I'll have this like 4 episodes of everything. Kind of go through and be like, huh, I really care about that game? Nah, I don't care about it.
Nah.
Skip, skip, skip. So it's but at the same point, I'm just like, oh look, they're talking about, and I know everyone was talking about Unfathomable for a bit.
For good
But
reason.
and Ankh is the other one
Hmm.
that boy, everyone just wants to talk about that. Have you guys talked about that yet?
You know what? It's funny. We have it and we've played it a few times. We have not talked about it yet. Um, we also kind of like this concept of, if the game came out 2 days ago and somebody's episode came out today, now I know, we get previews, we get to play things on TTS, we see things ahead of time, but we do try and make it an issue to not play a game 2 or 3 times before talking about the game. So something like Carnegie, which was on BGA, was relatively new, but we got to play it a dozen times before we could speak to it and kind of give our input on it. So eventually we'll probably get to Ankh, but probably after it's been out for a year or so that we can
I
intelligent like
demand you talk about it the next 2 weeks.
everybody's got an opinion on the
The
merge
dung
mechanic, for
merchant
example.
is calling me and demanding.
Well, like, I don't know if I like the merge or not. I want to play it like half a dozen more times, a dozen more times with different people, and then kind of make that conclusion. Okay, I've had this, I had the first bite, I had the middle, and I finished it. Now I can speak to it and say how I
You
feel
need to
about
take
it.
it. You need to take it to PAX and just play with random dudes. I shouldn't say dudes, random people, but probably mostly dudes, unfortunately.
Why is that? Why should I play it with randos?
Because I don't want to play that game with people I don't know, because people will get mad.
You
Like,
don't want to be in last.
people are going to get mad, and I want to see you have to deal with that
Oh, geez, have to put
from
up with
another
that.
table as I watch. And then when the table starts, like, oh, there's the merge.
Well, thanks. I feel very welcome here.
Yeah, well, no. I want you to host it, so you have to be
Right.
gracious.
You get in on the game with me. I know you're not traveling to PAX. That's way too far, but
I am.
you're going to be at PAX
I am.
dinner.
Yeah,
I won't be there till
I'm very
Friday. I found
excited
out I
about it.
can't make it Thursday night. I have to pick up my wife from the airport, so I'm going to come out on Friday and got a place to stay with Scott. It's going to be a blast.
Does it actually start on Thursday?
No, but there's a mixer of some sort Thursday night, and Scott's out there for work. Actually, he's an actor along with the King, and
Oh,
he's
I
got
didn't
an
know he was actually.
Airbnb for
I'm
like
an
a
actor
week
as
and a
well. I
half.
just closed the show.
Really? Well, I'm not an actor.
Yeah. Why are you here? Where is Scott? Call Scott.
I know. You know what else? He does voice work. So he does, like he's done an audiobook, for example, and you can download and listen to books that Scott Walton's on. So you really didn't get the better half today.
Well, you know what this means though. So it means I'm gonna have to get your voice in on some of the voiceover intros I do, just so you can rub it in that kingly face.
I'll tell Scott. Yeah, and you know what? You can send me a check for any amount greater than a penny, so that I can be like, I got paid for it too, Scott. Let him know I got some paid work.
Yeah, I'll give you a quarter at PAX. Let's jump into the actual next part of this, which is what game or games have you been playing lately? And then the second part is going to be what's on your table right now. You may not have played it yet, but so two-parter. We'll start with what have you been
Good
playing
answer.
lately? I got a couple. I'm sure you got a couple.
Okay. Do you want me to? Are we diving in and talking about the game and giving
Much
listeners
as
an
you
idea
want.
of what's going on?
Yeah.
Well, I should have prepped this a little bit better.
I know it's
Um,
embarrassing. I bet Scott would have.
okay, he would have.
He
Let's
would
start.
have hired someone to write him a script so he could,
Here we go. Here we go. Well, I've been playing a game. Have you ever played QE, quantitative easing?
I have not. It sounds way too smart for me.
It's not that smart, but it's phenomenal. We had a board game. We had a meetup. We've been doing meetups for the podcast in the Pittsburgh area, and so far we've had a lot of success with them. But part of that is that you have to kind of take smaller footprint games that people can pick up quickly. That I don't have to teach this. Like I'm not going to take Eclipse to the meetup and expect to actually have a good, solid, fun game
Well,
of it
just tell
going.
everyone to watch the 40-minute how to play video.
Simple, right? Well, I took QE, and QE. This is boards and table. No, I don't have
Well,
it in
board
front of
game
me, so I'm
tables.
not going to try. Board game tables. They did
Yeah.
QE. They did on tour. Did they do on tour as well?
I don't know. They also do tables, I hear.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they did this game, and it's a good one. So, how does it work? It's an auction game, and I actually thoroughly like auction games. And the idea is that you play as world powers bailing out companies. So you can play with up to 5 people. Somebody can be the U.S., the U.K., etc. And the way the game works, you're gonna have this stack of tiles. We were playing with 5, so I'm just gonna go with that. And you have this stack of tiles that have a point value, and an industry, and a country. So if I'm playing as America, I want to be bailing out American companies. So if I flip up a tile and it's worth 3 points, they're all 1 to 4. So you can gauge the value of a company based on that scale. It's a 3 point company and it's America. I might want that a little bit more than someone else because at the end of the game, you're going to fill out your sheet and you're going to, how many American companies did you get? Well, you don't get any bonus for the first one, but the second one, you get 6 extra points, and the third one, 10 extra points. So you're incentivized to get companies from your own country. That's neither here nor there. The way the game works is I am the auctioneer and I flipped up that card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down on my little placard with dry erase, USA placard, I'm going to write how much am I willing to bid on this company. I can bid whatever I want. We all have bottomless pockets. So I might write down $10. I might write down $10 billion. And I thought, okay, I know how to play this game. These folks don't. So I'm going to start it simple. I'm going to write down $500. Everybody else blind bids. They write on their card and then they hand it to me face down. So I get to see what everyone else is willing to bid. Now, inevitably, somebody outbid my 1500. So you always see somebody has 1501, somebody has $3,000. Maybe there's a wackadoo at the table that bid 10,000. Well, I know that Joe's willing to bid 10,000. Mary only bid $1 higher than me. I know that. So I kind of get an idea. And all I do is I take that company token. It's a dry erasable token in the middle, my America worth 3 points. I flip it up and I'm going to write 10,000. Then face down, I'm going to hand it to Joe. Nobody knows what he bid. They just know that they didn't win. So Mary's going 1501. That wasn't enough. And then Carl that bid 3,000 is like, wow, 3,000 didn't win. Then after we're done, I pass the auctioneer token and Carl's up. So he flips a token. And what am I going to do? You know what? I'm going to bid. He says, I'll bid 2,000 on this company. So I write down on my card, 1 million. We all slide it to Joe or Carl face down. He looks at them and you see his eyes. He goes, picks up the token, writes down 1M, slides it to me. So you have your tracking of what companies you've acquired, the points that they're worth, and everyone can see that because you have all of the tokens. And then at the very end of the game, you're going to go around the table doing this with several companies in a 5-player game, 3 times around the table. So 15 companies are going to go. At the end of the game, whoever spent the most money, they're out. They lose. They cannot win. So you can't win if you spent the most. Get your stuff off the table. Everyone left, they're going to see who got the most points. And there's a means of doing that. Like I said, it incentivizes getting your own companies or certain industries. It's not complicated, though. The real meat of the game is he just found out I'm willing to bet $1 million. I'm willing to bid $1 million on this company. Holy crap. So what happens when the next guy is up? Carl, who initially was bidding 3 grand, now he's bidding 1.1 million. and that guy finds out about it. So you get to kind of play mind games. You only get fed information when you're the auctioneer, and you only know what you bid and if it was enough. So after my big bid, maybe the next one I write 2 million, and I still don't win. Oh, somebody's in the game now. They're getting up there in the millions. By the
Damn it,
end of the
Sri
game,
Lanka bidding billions of dollars.
by the end of the game, I'm telling you what, it's you just see like zeros on people's card, like I'll bid 4 quadrillion. Like the numbers get absurd. But you start to find out, like, okay, I bid 7 million and I didn't win. Mary won that one. So I know that she has spent at least 7 million. I haven't spent that much. As long as I stay under that amount, I know that I won't be the one who busts. If somebody else wins a company in the meanwhile, they probably bid more than 7 million. Now I got to get in the game because you can't win if you're not winning companies. So if you're constantly just going what the auctioneer bid plus one, well, you can't win. You're not going to get any companies in front of you, so you're not going to have any points. Fantastic game. It plays with 5 people. It plays in 15 or 20 minutes. I don't think anybody was disenchanted with the game when we were done. It was a hit. We played it 3 times at this meetup, and I had 4 different people each time. Hit, 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 and you know what? For a simple game, Scott and I like to visit simple games as our feature review per episodes. I could see doing QE. Quantitative easing is one of our feature reviews because there is a lot more to it that is simple to understand, but the game is so in the brain that I think it's one that I think he and I could talk for a while about, strategy if it's there and
Yeah,
some of
you
the.
could have just stopped there. He and I could talk for a while.
Oh yeah, no, we could talk for forever on that.
Well, I hope you bring it to PAX then.
Maybe I'm going by train. I don't know how much I'm allowed to take on a train.
Just bring it. Just put it in your backpack.
It's a
We can
small one.
play it over some beers, right? If it's
I'll
dry
bring it.
erase, that means it's waterproof, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, I think it's a dry erase on cardboard. I wouldn't test it.
Fine. This podcast is over. Well, I have not been playing simple things.
What have you had
'Cause I
on the
had been
table?
the previous week. I've been playing a lot of simpler stuff because I put out my Game of the Year nominees, and 3 of them were very well, not very, but lighter games. I've been playing the Davalier, which is an auction game that you probably love. I've been
Hmm.
playing Land vs. Sea, this tile laying game that's a lot of fun, and Furnace. And I've been playing a whole bunch of those as I'm trying to rank my top 6. And I got some heavier ones I'm just starting to get into the retesting. But at heart, I'm a big dungeon crawl guy. Like
Okay.
that's my first love. Far before Euros. I wouldn't touch a Euros. Like I don't want to do anything with sheep and crops, like or crops of sheep. Like I don't need that nonsense. And then I was introduced to the more thematic Euros and changed my
Hmm.
life. But so first, I played a lot of a game, an older dungeon crawl called Galaxy Defenders, and I've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times. It is the precursor to Sword and Sorcery, which is pretty popular. I don't like it nearly as much, and it's just aliens are invading, and you're the plucky batch of humans going out there to save everybody, and it's just
Defend the galaxy.
yeah, it's just great. It's a little bit schlocky. You're just chucking dice everywhere. It's really hard, maybe harder than it should be. And there's the scenario that I just played through. It ran a little bit long. It's one of those like I survived 15 rounds. I'm like, man, you just make it 10 rounds. That'd have been better because I'm playing this by myself, and so I got all 5 characters out there. So I'm like,
A
too
lot of
many
work,
hands reaching all
a lot of
over, and
maintenance. Yep.
yeah, which is great fun. Had a blast because we had our well, we talked about my school teacher, so I had time off, a few days
Hmm.
off from school. So I did that. Then I immediately put that away and put Middara back on the table, which is the it's a like an anime, yeah, huge. Like I
Yeah, you
don't,
got to put on the brace to lift it to put it
yeah,
on the table.
there it is, yeah, right here. It's a 20-pound box, and it's just story heavy. And I was just playing that, with like 4 scenarios of that, and we've had a whole podcast episode on that one. But
Hmm.
again, lots of dice, but really crunchy, really heavy story, and just many people say it's the best dungeon crawl out there, and I didn't rank it as my best, but I haven't finished it.
Okay.
And I mean, I've now played, I don't know, 30 hours worth, and I'm maybe a third, maybe
Oh, geez. Well,
through the
that can be
first
a
of
good thing.
three
I mean, it's not a
campaigns.
cheap game. You want to get a whole bunch of game out of it for the price, and
Yeah.
That's an expectation, I would say. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, if you like those kinds of games, you can get your hands on it, then it's great. Um, and I've decided, that they were kind enough to send me a copy of that.
Hmm.
I reviewed that a while ago, and now I'm trying to finish the whole campaign so I can then go throw all my money away when they reopen the pledge manager for the rest of it.
Yep.
And I'm told that there's an all-in-one box. And just as a reminder, for people who are actually watching, not listening, this is a big, very big box. So I don't know how you take 3 times this stuff and put it into one box
It's a
and lift it.
suitcase.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be
It's a
like the Trove
refrigerator box.
chest.
That's how they do it.
Yeah, it's going to be like the Trove chest from Too Many Bones, and it'd just be impossible to lift.
Yep.
But so those are the two things I've been playing the most lately, and so that's what I usually do with the dungeon crawl. I set it on the table like 3 days,
Hmm.
and every day I'll play like one mission or one scenario, and just leave it because that's the hardest part about those games is the setup. Because even when I've organized them, there's a bazillion little baggies of well, this is this and this is this, and I have
Hmm.
all these different all the stuff. The blessing of doing the video reviews for a while is I start getting sent. I've been being sent things to review that are components and like component upgrades. Like I
Nice.
have, I'm gonna reach over and grab this thing. Like this one's actually going to come with me to the convention. It's a collapsible dice tower.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah, and it's. I thought that's the
Clever.
dumbest thing I ever heard of, but let me tell you, this thing is great.
You're using it.
I
It's on
yeah
your table.
yeah. Oh, and now to fulfill the review thing, it's from Geek On. Uh, but all these um, things, and so with all these different toys and organizers, like I have this whole system that I set up. I got like dry erase tokens to do this, and it's like a whole thing. But that takes time, so I spent like half an hour to set this whole thing up. I'm
Yep.
not playing that once.
It's nice to have a table that you can leave it out on. For me, I had a copy of Middara that I ended up moving on from. I got it cheap from my dealer, Tiny Fred out here, who I hope catches wind of this. I'll send him a link when the video is up.
Tiny
Um,
Fred is clearly the dung merchant.
no, no, he's a respectable gentleman. No, he
Dung merchanting is a respectable profession, and I will thank you to stop slagging them off, please.
Or if they've all clicked, all the dung merchants have left the video. No, he sold me a copy of Middara, and it's the kind of game I think for me with the dungeon crawl, I get it in my mind, like I get this nostalgia thing about being a kid and playing Hero Quest, and I'm gonna get the group together, and we're gonna play this game. We're gonna do 2 campaign games, and then we're gonna get back together the next week, and we're gonna do 2 more. And for me, I think indulging in the fun of it, and you're shaking your head, and you know exactly where I'm going with this, is that you can't. And it's not even, oh, we have a podcast. We got to come up with more material for the show. No, I'll do 3 episodes in a row on one game. If we, like we're not beholden to anyone. We don't have sponsors or a Kickstarter. Like there's no backers that we need to fulfill that we're putting out a stream of good content. We can put out whatever we want, right? So it's not that I'm not able to, it's that no one that I know is able to. Like, how am I going to get the same group of, say, 3 people over every Saturday? And even if I could, well, I told you before we got started, a 6-year-old, like, oh, we got family, we got work. I love dungeon crawls for the concept of a dungeon crawl. But I find lately, like, I spoke to Alter Quest on the show. I soloed Alter Quest. Street Masters isn't as much of a dungeon crawl, but kind of. It's just a
Yeah.
different theme. You could theme it as goblins and skeleton warriors, and you've got a dungeon crawl. I soloed that one too. Sometimes Scott and I will get the chance to play a little bit of one. We started earlier this year with the Jaws of the Lion, and we're like, yeah, we're going to be the show that actually, we don't say oh, we're a show, so we had to move on to different things. So we played 6 games. We're going to actually finish it. Yeah, we still haven't. we,
No, well,
we still have like
it took
7 games to go. I see Scott every week, and we still can't seem to
no,
get back into it.
you can't do it. Like if you're gonna do it with a group as adults,
Hmm.
like it's gonna be over a long period of time. Like we
Yes.
finished Gloomhaven, and it took 2 years or more, and we beelined right through the story. We didn't know we were doing that, but we did. We took like one. Like there's this website somewhere where you get like all the branching narratives and stuff,
So yeah.
and So we looked at it afterwards and we "Whoop," went over one, came back, "Whoop," went straight through it. And we're doing Jaws of the Lion now.
Yeah,
And, I don't know, we're maybe 9, 10 in, and it's been a year. We'll,
that's about where Scott and I are.
yeah, we'll finish it eventually because we're enjoying it. But like, you gotta just be willing to kind of go through it. Like, we just finished Betrayal Legacy,
There you
just
go.
finished with another group, and it we started before the pandemic, and we just finished. That is
Oh,
a
geez.
12 game thing.
Well, having the pandemic, I'm sure, didn't help either.
Well, right, right, yeah, but so just no, you can't. Like I play them. I play them by myself. Sometimes there's some of them my wife will play. Like if
Hmm.
it's simple and just silly and fun. One of the ones that I love called Wander the Cult of Barnacle Bay. It's just very lighthearted and chucking dice, and my wife likes to play that one because you just throw dice, you're smashing stuff. You get to play a polar bear with a giant hammer. Like,
Nice.
yeah, like who doesn't want to do
I'll
that?
be a polar bear. Yeah.
Yeah, with a big old hammer, why not? So, but most of them, just she won't. Like I played through all, not all of it. I did the expansion campaign, soloed that one by myself.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, but if you can't, and I left that on the table because my wife was gone, had to be out of town for about 10 weeks, um,
Oh, wow.
around last Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I was, and that was the heart of the pandemic. So I was by myself. I was like, you know what? I got my little game table back here, my own room. So I left one game set up here, and we got this huge table to like entertain. We can get
Yeah.
8, maybe even 10 people at this table.
That ain't
Pandemic.
going to happen anytime
So
soon.
I had at one point I had 3 different games just sitting out
Oh,
on
that's
that
awesome.
table, and then I had to go find somewhere else to eat when I wanted to eat. I was like, "No, this is happening. We'll play all these games."
I can see you shopping for this now, and you see this giant table, and you're like, I could play so many games on that. And I can see you trying to sell your wife on the idea. We can entertain. We can have big dinners.
You
You
know
knew what
what?
you were doing.
She brought it up. She said, "We can do all this stuff, and when we have people over to play a big group over to play games, we have that there too." And she was even looking at a game topper for that, and then I was like, "I don't know if we need all that." So we just got like a big, nice little neoprene mat to like roll out on the table. So
Well
she's
done.
she
Teach me your
supports
tricks.
my my habit as long as I keep finding ones for her to play that she enjoys, and
That's the trick.
I don't ruin her plan. Let me tell you, she gets angry for playing a game. She's got a plan she's been working on. If I ruin it,
Nope.
there is like she won't flip
Hell
a
hath no
table
fury.
because it's heavy. But if it was a lighter table or she hit the weights for 3 weeks or so, that table would be flipped. What else have you been playing? Anything else you've been playing lately?
Yeah, well, I could go relatively new or relatively old. Well, not relatively. Well, let's go with the older. It's my favorite game. I had the opportunity to get Twilight Imperium fourth edition to the table,
That's
and I bring
right. I
this up.
listened to your thing, and I'm
Yes,
gonna pause. I'm gonna pause it. Not I've never played.
that's okay. A lot of people
Um,
haven't.
and the reason I never played is the length.
Hmm.
Like boy, I just can't get into it. But the story I like to tell is me and my buddy, people who listen to the podcast, watch, they know him as Streamline Matt. He and I were at a local convention, a little one, and we were leaving. You know how you go to the conventions, you stay late, as late as you can. If you're like, I'm old, I have to go home and go to sleep.
Yep, yep.
But you get there and magically you're like 10 years younger for 3 days,
Like a
and you
little
can do it.
kid.
And so we were leaving 11:30 midnight, maybe midnight 30, I don't know. There were 7 people just setting up Twilight Imperium.
They won't get done in time for breakfast.
And I will never forgive myself for not going in there immediately when I got back in the morning to see if they were still there.
What time did you get back in the morning?
9.
They may have. They may have. And I imagine, being all groggy and tired, they probably weren't whizzing through that game.
Yeah, but so you got Twilight Imperium, and and I'll
Hmm.
give the brief setup for it because I listened to the episode about this. Never go
Yeah.
check out the episode where they talked about this, but they did the research. Patrick made them watch videos on their
Yes.
factions,
Absolutely.
2-hour long videos, made them take notes, gave
It's
them
not
tests
that
to make
bad.
sure they actually watched it, and they got together for a whole day to play this thing. Go ahead.
And this one was actually by request of one of my friends. He said, "Hey, we should try and make this happen. If you
And
set aside a day, we'll
what were his
come."
exact words he said before you took the gun away from his head?
Please don't kill me. Oh my! No, I introduced them to Twilight Imperium a couple years ago after fourth edition came out, and that lobster group, it was a hit to the extent that the second time that we played it, then one of them said to me, "Is like, if you just want to play Twilight Imperium from now on when we come over, I think we'd be okay with that." They're like, "Don't get us wrong, we love playing the other games, but this is just absurdly good." Like, it's a game that does require the right group. It is not for everyone, and it is very lengthy. But we were willing to do that. We were doing our game days roughly like 11 to 7. So there'd be food, drinks, everybody brings snacks and just play. I didn't make them watch a 2-hour video. I put it up as an option. A couple of them knew how to play. In our 8-player game, we played with Prophecy of Kings. It's the
You know,
expansion that came
nobody
out.
believes you didn't make them watch those videos.
Well, I sent them to them. They all told me that they watched them, but I get the feeling that none of them did. So we were playing with Prophecy of Kings, which allows for 8 players. And the way that I set it up was through a Facebook group. I actually made a group for it, and I invited these 8 people so that I could update as we got closer to the date. I could post the videos so that, like, for my 2 friends who are they're big video gamers, but I've never had them over for board games before. I don't know how they're going to receive this. They both expressed interest. So I was like, yeah, you know what? If you want to try it, it's not easy. It's a long day. Like, I let them know what they were up against. They were like, I want to do that. They actually did really well with the game.
Yeah, and you're like, yeah, and if you're too weak for it, that's okay. It's
Yeah, if
okay
your
if you're
bloodline is weak, you don't have to
yeah,
come over.
that's fine. That's fine.
The dirty secret of Twilight Imperium is that it is not that hard a game to grasp. Um, the central mechanic, you have these 8 action cards. Well, let's start here. There's 24 different races in the game. So 8 different people. You're going to have 8 different races that are being played. And obviously, who's sitting to your left and who's sitting to your right. They're going to be closer to your faction's slice of the map pie. So it every game's going to be different just based on that alone. They have different starting technologies. There is a tech tree. There's some, oh geez, 24 plus the 10, probably 34 different technologies that you have to work with. Some of them are different for each faction. So you have faction specific technologies. I don't have to go on and on about the asymmetry of Twilight Imperium, what it brings to the table. But I think maybe something to highlight was that we had 2 new players, and we had 1 or 2 that had only played it once before. So I try and give them like hey, watch this video. It's 42, I think it's 42 minutes. You're not going to get it. Like 10 minutes in, you're going to be cross-eyed, like, with the drool coming down, and it's just going to sound like this guy's rambling. But you'll hear some of these things. When you get here, I'll do a brief overview, and trust me, you guys play these video games that are more. I don't play video games anymore because I play it one night. By the time I get back to it the next night, I don't remember what any of the controls do. And I'm like, if you guys can handle that, you can handle this. There are 8 different actions that you select, and most all of them are, I get to do this. Everybody else has the option of doing that. So by the end of round 1, especially in an 8-player game, every player has seen all 8 of the primary actions happen. They've seen what they do. They've seen that secondary portion of it. And you go around the table. So if I'm the new guy and I'm 3 away, that guy's using technology. He gets to research a tech, and everyone else can spend resources to do it. Well, I get to see that guy spend resources to do it, and then I get to see that. Okay, and they're getting a technology from their technology. Oh, I can handle this. Do I have enough? Oh, easy. And by round 2 or 3, when they've done all of these things, or at least seen them all 2 or 3 times, it's no problem. Now, you're going to run
But
into
by then,
nuanced
it's too
things.
late. They've already lost.
No, no. Well, to an extent, probably, but I will make it an issue. And I said to
Patrick's
them,
like, no, no, no. They lost before they came into my house.
if you're brand new and you're going to, now we're not Sharks the game, we're not professional, we don't play this game on TTS or anything. We've only played it say 4 or 5 times, the ones of us that were more experienced. But we will give suggestions. I'll say to new guy Steve, like, okay, Steve, here's your turn 1, your best bet. You're going to want to make sure that you take some planets. Just give those little, like, hand holding things. And then by round 2 or 3, Steve, I still have some ideas for you, but I don't want to play your game. If you ever want a hint, just let me know. So like, you let them know you're not alone, but I also don't want to.
And then you wait until you're about to crush them. And then you're like, you want some suggestions? Let me just recommend that you just turn your fleet, your guns to face Scots. Just
Now,
do that.
I know you have been in a position where you have the perfect play, where you can take advantage of the person that you're teaching or one of the newbies at the table, and it's like, I should do this, but I can't because I've been trying to help them this whole time, and they're going to think that I set them up for me to swoop in. So I'm just not going to do
Yeah,
that.
we're going to talk about that a little bit later when we get to our topic. So I'm going to
Yes,
hold off
yes,
on that.
absolutely. Um, but a fantastic game. We I want to say concluded. Our deal was you can play to 10, which is a standard game, and it's better with the base game. The expansion adds more ways to score points. So we played till 14, and the way that we set it up was, listen, guys, we're going to play to 14. If 6 o'clock rolls around and we haven't hit 14, then we're going to do one more round. And at the end of that, whoever's in the lead will win the game. And we all agreed to that. We didn't hit 14. At the end, Jeremy and I tied at 13. And I didn't get a chance to share this on the show. Maybe I did. I don't think I shared it on the podcast,
Yeah,
but
either you or he cheated horribly, and
oh, I did.
yeah.
And it wasn't horrible. It was a rules oversight because I had to monitor two new
I'm
players
sorry. Can
plus
can you
a
put
very
that word,
complex.
those rules oversight in quotes, please? Hey,
Yes,
rules
rules
oversight.
oversight. No, I got a rule wrong where I produced it. For those that know Twilight Imperium, if you have a space dock, which is where you're making your units come out of, that's where they're being produced. One of my space docks was blockaded. I didn't control the space area in that hex around it, so I wasn't allowed to produce. And I just oversight. I produced, and I was like, well, I think we have a combat immediately. So we had a combat immediately, and my stuff that was left over on the following turn, the last turn, put me in a position to score a point to tie. And I was thinking about it the next day. I was in the car. I was like, I couldn't have. I wasn't thinking about it. I was listening to Space Cats Peace Turtles. They're a podcast that's all Twilight Imperium, and I'm enamored with them. They're like my new heroes. It occurred to me I couldn't have produced at that blockaded space dock. It was just a rule that slipped my mind, and I messaged Jeremy. I was like, you know what? I think I got a rule wrong. I think you won this actually. And
He's
he was
like,
like, well,
I know. I've been researching this for the past 24 hours.
I saw it in that 42-minute video that you made me watch. No, there aren't any stakes involved. We're all playing to have a good time with Twilight Imperium. Yeah, there's bragging rights for the winner, no doubt. But I don't think anybody's going home disappointed if they don't win, and I don't think anybody did. We had a phenomenal time. Um, if you're nervous about taking on the game because of the complexity, I can't sugarcoat it and say that it's a light game or even a medium game. It is a complex game, but it's not overwhelming. There isn't nuance within nuance. Everything is sort of surface level. And once you understand how to produce units and move, and there's 8 action cards, well, that's basically the game. The complexity from there is how do I do this well? You know what I mean? Like chess. Chess is not a complex game, but it's a deep game. And I
I
think
think that's
Twilight
the
Imperium
what
does
makes
that a little bit
the
too.
the 4X games is the good ones good. Is I mean, yeah, yes, like uh I got to spend a lot of time with Fractal
Hmm.
lately, which went very well on Kickstarter. And that too is a heavy game. Like there's a lot of stuff going on,
Hmm.
but the core of it is not hard. The core of it is actually exceedingly simple and clean, but to ever be good at it is very hard. And every 4X game that I played that I've liked, and it's not my favorite genre, is like that. So, they were always going to be heavy. Like I don't think you can make a truly simple 4X game. I don't think that's possible.
They kind of require bells and whistles. Yeah.
Yeah, it's those stupid 4Xs, right? Um, but it shouldn't be hard to learn the basics. Like you're talking about Ankh earlier. It's the same
Yes.
thing. Like it's not, I think I found that to be exceedingly easy to pick up and
It's
play.
like a medium weight game. It is not a complex game.
But to be good at it, I think is probably very hard.
Hmm.
It's just one of those. And so I'm going to circle back to I said I want you to take Ankh and just play with everybody because the special thing that you described is you have a group of people that are fine if they lose.
Yeah.
Like they're like whatever. And I've gotten to that point in gaming where for the most part I don't usually care if I lose. Like whatever, it's fun. I'm gonna enjoy it and whatever.
Hmm.
Um, but just imagine if you really cared and you spent 8 hours or 10 hours, or if you're those people at the con all night, and you're the person who pretty much lost on turn two. Like,
Oh, that'd be rough. I will say to a game like Twilight Imperium's credit, it's hard to lose on turn two. You can make plays that are poor. You can make a poor decision early that will affect you moving on. It's not a king making game, but there is definitely a whoa. They're getting strong, and we all have fleets. We have a means of putting them back in their place, so to speak. If I make a poor decision on turn two and I lose, we'll say half my fleets, and I didn't get to take control of a planet, suddenly I'm not a threat. So the person over here, they're not as worried about me attacking. Maybe they can make a push towards the center. You have reason to want to go to the middle of the map in this game. The person over there, maybe they don't have as much reason to, I'm not a threat anymore. So I have some time. I have a little bit of a wiggle room to be able to do some things to, well, I can just build an army. I don't have to worry about protecting this side because he's not coming after me anyway because I'm not threatening him in any capacity. Now maybe they are, but when you know each other and like I'm not going to win the game by piling on this guy. I'm going to win the game by meeting my objectives. Sometimes maybe they're incentivized to attack you by the objectives and you happen to be an easy target because you made a poor choice. But generally speaking, if somebody is at 7 points and you're playing to 10 and I'm at 3, well, you're not worried about me. I'm not the target. You need to get rid of the guy at 7 because everybody else is at 3, 4,
boy,
5.
you have practiced that speech at the table. I can see. Yeah, I know.
I
I'm not
use
a
it as a
threat.
bargaining
I
chip.
am not a threat. He's a threat.
It's
He,
especially funny when you're the guy at 7 points and you're like, "What me?"
no, I look. I have 7 now, but I can't get the other 5. Boy, everyone has said that, right? No, look. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, I'm out of gas. I don't. I just don't
Well,
see how I can get it in the back of your like. I can totally do it if they just believe me right now.
I think that's one of the things that makes Twilight Imperium so enchanting for all of us is that I always described it as you want to have a giant fleet, but you don't want to have to use it. Sometimes you have to, but the idea is the game is controlled. Meet these objectives that are at the top of the board. So if I'm trying to meet the objectives, I don't have to go to war with you. You don't have to go to war with me. We even have promissory notes. So like you can make agreements in a game like I don't know, I'll say Axis and Allies, which I know, well, we'll say Risk because of different factions. It's not two factions fighting each other, Axis and Allies. We'll say in a game of Risk, I can make a deal with you and say, how about you don't attack me here and I'll go up this way and get that guy in his flank. Okay, well, that's great and all, but it's not binding. You might be like, yeah, okay, and then backstab me immediately. There's plenty of backstabbing in Twilight Imperium, but they do give the opportunity to put skin in the game where you actually give cards to each other. I can give you a card that says, here, I won't attack you. And if I do, you give this back to me and I have to withdraw immediately. And I've passed my turn. So it's not just saying like I won't attack you. It's saying here's a guarantee. It's called a promissory note in the game. And there are various different types of promissory notes. To the extent that you can even trade a point. Like you have 1 point card that you're allowed to give away to somebody. It's worthless to you, but it's worth a point to whoever you give it to. So much of the game does not revolve around can I build a big fleet? Can I build a big fleet? Can I take out that fleet? So much of the game is can I talk to people? Can I make good trades? Can I make good deals? I need cultural planets. There's an objective out for 3 and I only have one. He's got one. How do I take it and stay on his good side? You know what I mean? It's a game that's all about being like used
Well,
car
that starts
salesman.
by getting him a beer
Hey, that's yeah, absolutely. Asking if
and a
they'd like a
shot,
refill on chips. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
yeah. No,
Are you proposing that we get them drunk?
I would never propose. I would never propose that ever, never ever. All right, but so this is not. This is actually it's shocking. This is not an episode about Twilight Imperium, but
Oh, I could go on.
I know I listened to the episode. Um, but so I'll move into what do you have on your table right now? And I actually have 2 things on my table right now, and I'll start with one, which is a follow what I was saying earlier as I'm playing through my Game of the Year nominees. I have Hadrian's Wall
Mm.
sitting out, and what I've been dying to do is the solo campaign that they came out with. I mean, not the whole thing, play through some of it. Um, it's like 14. You have to win like 14 times to win the thing. But for those of you who, well, actually, if you're listening to this, because we talked did a whole episode on it. But it's a flip and write game. It looks like a spreadsheet, but the beauty of this game is I called it the perpetual motion machine. And what it does is it makes you feel like you're actually smart because you spend this one resource and you could spend one blue meeple to fill in the one box. Or you could spend the blue meeple to get a purple meeple, then use that purple meeple to fill in a different box. That's going to get you a stone. You're going to use that stone to fill in a different box. That's going to get you a yellow meeple. You use that yellow meeple over here. That's going to fill another box, get you a black meeple. You take the black meeple, you're going to fill in another box. That's going to get you right back to that blue meeple to fill in the box you almost could have been. And boy,
Bingo.
you feel like you're smart. I'm not, but I feel like it. And so it's just this beautiful thing where suddenly you're like, I got three meeples. What do I do? And then suddenly 5 minutes later, you're still coloring little boxes. Like you feel like you need like
Counting
two
out
pencils
how
and
you
you're
can
just,
go about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So really, really, so I got that set up to, depending on how late we go tonight, to play that tonight. So my wife is working on her master's degree, and tonight's a homework night for her, and she's writing a paper, which means I can just
Got time?
go. I'm going to go out to the big table. I'm going to spread out tiny little Hadrian's wall across the 10-person table, 8-person table. So I got that one, and the other one I got set up is a game that hasn't been picked up yet. It's been demoed to a couple publishers. It's a game that my brother designed. It's called Space Racing Series. It's a drifting spaceship racing game. Takes
Okay.
about 30 minutes to play. And by drifting, you're like vector movement. Like, if you've seen Battlestar Galactica, you know how the human fighter ships are flying, they say they'll just turn themselves around, but they keep going the same direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, like actual space stuff, I guess. That's how space
Oh, that's
works,
how it
apparently.
works.
Yeah. Who knew? Scientists, right? And apparently my brother. Uh, and so, but that's the core of the game. And there's three different game modes. You can either just do a traditional race, you're going through gates, or you can be kind of all flying off different directions, doing different things. And there's black holes that, of course, will pull you into the black hole. So you got to kind of like whip around it. And there's
Hmm.
asteroids. You can go around them, or you can be like, screw it. I'm just going to go on through them and see what happens. And of course, you might get hit by the
Probably
asteroid
not
and
a
sent
great
the wrong
idea.
direction. Or maybe you get lucky and the asteroid hits you and sends you the direction you want to go. Who
Okay.
knows? And all kinds of things like that. And so I had, with a previous version of his prototype, I had made a small pitch video for him and sent it to,
Hmm.
he sent it to publishers. And actually, two of them looked at it very closely and were thinking about it and decided to pass on it. And now he's made some changes. So I got to make another one of these videos. And let me tell you, I was hoping so hard that the last one picked up the game because I really didn't want to make another video.
Yep.
But nope, it's there. And
More work.
I say it's fun. It's actually it's actually a lot of fun. And I'm hoping it's picked up. And so those
Sure.
are the things I got on my table right now. How about you? What do you got?
I've got a game called Coffee Traders. It's on the table, set up, and I can tell you nothing about it aside from that you're probably trading coffee. Our next meetup for the show is going to be at a little coffee shop here, well, not a little. It's actually a pretty big cafe in Pittsburgh. After the last one, they saw that we had the event going on, so they messaged us and they said, "Hey, would you come to ours?" And I said, "Well, absolutely." Coffee Traders is one of those games that, for whatever reason, anytime I saw like an ad for it on Facebook or saw the miniature market thing that scrolls by and anyway, I was like, I need to have this game. I don't know why. I didn't research it or anything. I knew it was a euro, and I saw some pictures, and it's like, I need to have this. So I got it, and it's set up on the table. I got to learn it because I thought, well, we're going to be at a coffee shop. I want to introduce Coffee Traders. See what we did there. We're thinking. Now I just got to learn it.
Yeah, I hear it's actually kind of heavy.
Yeah, it might not actually end up making it to the meetup because I think it's probably a little heavier than I think you'd want to introduce to an unknown crowd. I think BGG puts it at like 4 or 5 or something like. Well, maybe not 4, 4.2. It's above 4. It's high on their scale. So it's like, well, we're going to be in for the long haul trying to figure this one out.
Isn't
But
Twilight Imperium only like a 3.9 or something?
I would believe it. And honestly, I would think that it's probably a little bit lower. This one's got a lot that I just got a one at a time. Yeah, you know how it is. You set a game up on the table and you're like, okay, I'll get to that rule book tonight. And night rolls around, you're like, I'm gonna watch reruns of Seinfeld or something. So you're like, okay, tomorrow, kid gets on the bus, I'll get right at it. And then the morning comes around, you're like, nah, I'm gonna go for a run. I gotta cook some breakfast, and you just don't get around to it. It's just been set up on the table now for 3 days, and I gotta learn it.
I just at that point when that happens sometimes. I'm I just Who has a video up? Teach me.
Put
Oh,
this
look.
up. Put this up before PAX so that somebody can hear me ask if you know how to play. Teach me at PAX. I'll sit down with you and we'll sit and play for hours, and you can show me how to play Coffee Traders, and then I won't have to read the rule book.
That's right. See, well done. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
my listenership is much smaller than yours.
I doubt that.
Yep. All right, but so we're going to jump into our topic
Hmm.
for today, and what we're talking about is, and I'm going to call it the idea of min maxing or
Hmm.
playing optimally,
Yeah.
and the idea being every turn or whatever your build is, or it's got to be the best possible, just the absolute best thing you can possibly do. And
Hmm.
so, and yeah, I'll start with it. You know, the first question being, is that how you play? And I'll say I don't. Very, I'm not gonna say never, but for the most part, I'll just play, and I like games that have a lot of chaos anyway.
Hmm.
So it's hard to play optimally when I'm about to throw a bunch of dice and see what happens. You know,
That's true. You can
It-
calculate the odds all you want, but the
yeah,
first time that it's like, okay, so I should get 4 hits out of my 7 dice, and you roll and you get one, and you're like, well, I'm not going to spend all the time doing that.
yeah. So
I hear you.
so for the and but one of the things that has happened to me over the past few years of as I've been doing this is I'm much more interested in just playing the game nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's funny since I actually stopped caring if I was
Hmm.
winning or losing. I feel like I win a lot more now. Um, it's probably because I play a lot more games than almost anybody I know. So you kind of have ingrained.
Start connecting the dots a little bit
Yeah,
quicker.
little bit
Yeah.
faster, a little bit faster. Like there's a lot of Euro style games that the first two times I play with my wife, I will win, and then I will never win again. Because I will pick it up much faster, but she
Hmm.
is much smarter when it comes to planning and things like that. So for me,
Hmm.
I don't do it very much until it's like a game of Root or something like that. One of those games that I always expect to lose. And I don't do this if I'm playing the app, but like in person. Then suddenly I'm like, hold up. I think I could win this turn. Hold up. Everybody just sit down. I'm gonna take all this extra time you guys have been taking on your turns. I'm collecting right now. Here we go. Hold up. I know I can do
Hmm.
it. Then I will suddenly become this like if you see seen that gif of I think it's from the hangover where like all the math equations are like flying in front of his
Yep.
face, that suddenly becomes me,
Yep.
and then I will find it. But that's about it as far as playing. Even when I'm playing like dungeon crawls or things where you're just building characters, I'm like, it'd probably be smarter to do this, but it sounds a lot more fun to have a penguin. You know?
Oftentimes that's the balance, isn't it? What's
Yeah.
fun versus what's the smarter thing to do.
Yeah. But so, how about you? How optimal do you get?
Not very. I like to think that I, you know, play optimally every time, or I attempt to. But realistically, I think one of the big things for me was I'm the teacher in our group, and Scott and I are having a similar discussion in an upcoming episode. And one of the reasons that we wanted to tap into that thought is because I was actively thinking about it the other day. I don't track my wins or anything. I don't finish a game day and go like, now how many games did I win? We played 4 and I won 2 of them. Okay, I feel better
And if you
about
haven't won
myself.
at least two, you go home and flog yourself.
No dinner. Exactly. Um, no, but I
You
did
don't let anybody
actually.
go. It's like, no, guys, we got to keep playing. I want to eat this week.
Well, I did actually start thinking about it. Like, do I even care if I win? Is there? We're playing these strategy games. I'm not having the guys play something that's just entirely random all the time. We're playing games that involve some amount of thinking and thought and pre-planning, and yet am I actually doing that? And realistically, no. And I think part of it is because I'm teaching. Part of it's like with a meetup, even if people know the game, it's like, well, we're having this big atmosphere, new people, strangers. We got to wave, say, oh, it's so nice to meet you, that sort of thing. And oh, I'll just play a game, or this.
Suddenly Patrick rolls in. He's the hard ass. He's like, shut up and sit down while I destroy you. I have a podcast. You will respect my gaming.
Right. You know what? It's kind of funny you mentioned that. I went over to play a game of Scythe with my friend Jimmy, who I gather he and his group, they're relatively new to the hobby gaming side of things, but they fell in love with Scythe, and I was like, hey, I'll go play Scythe with them. This will be great. And at the end of a game of Scythe, you can scatter out your troops and have control of multiple territories, and none of them did that, but I did. So, like the territory scoring, I won the game tremendously based on that, and I think that's kind of what triggered this thought of like, wait a minute, am I regularly playing optimally? There are games that I do that for, but generally, no. I think I'm more concerned with, is everyone having fun? If I'm hosting, be it an event or just at my house, is everyone having fun? Does everyone understand the game? Are they making this decision because I taught them well, or are they just like going through the motions? Like, I think that that's where my mind state is, and it keeps me actually from playing optimally. So full circle, I don't play optimally.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. There's only one game where I feel like I do that, and it's only because, and I don't track wins losses either, except for this one because I've never lost. I even won the demo that I played at Origins,
Okay,
and that is Vast Mysterious Manor,
you've
which
never lost
is
the vast.
yeah. Oh, that is a fantastic game. I don't have a single win that doesn't have an asterisk next to it because the rules in that thing are just like crazy pants. Though a buddy of mine said that apparently even Patrick Leader has said he's never won the game without an asterisk. So like it's just a game. But that one doesn't matter what it's like. That one, like as people are taking their turns, I am just like
Watching
lasered in.
closely, taking notes.
And I'm serious. Once I lose, it'll be fine.
Hmm.
Maybe I want to hope, or I'll be like, I gotta get my streak back.
You'll be done with the
Start again.
game.
But other than that, it's for the most part, I just want to have fun. And I think that's also related to how much I love chaos in games because, like, I love Cosmic Frog, and it doesn't get any more chaotic than that thing.
It's hard to play optimally when, well, to your point, you said, well, if you're rolling a whole bunch of dice, well, yeah, if an event can come up and ruin your entire game plan, then it's hard to take it too seriously. Like, I'm going to think my way out of a situation. Sometimes the game as another player just picks on you, and
Yeah,
those are the
when
games
you
that are
keep rolling a one, you can't think your way out of that.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and it's also kind of the again as I was going back to the idea of you just playing Ankh with random people. Like it's about the group of people that you have because
Right.
like it could be very easy to just be a real turd when that's happening to you. Like, like real easy. You keep rolling ones and most people play with me, they're like when it comes to dice rolling, like I'm bad. Like it just
We have fun with it when that
yeah.
whoever, it's every game day somebody gets the bug, and they're just rolling bug. You just kind of throw your hands up. Like, thankfully we're a group where like it's almost an honor to be the person who can't roll well, because first of all, you could just blame your loss on bad rolls, but nobody gets nobody gets upset
Really
or
angry. But we've all seen those people.
yes.
We've all seen them, and which is it's always my hesitation with playing games like that. Usually, like a convention, because if you're gonna be there for 3 hours, like you want people to be cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I'd say, and I think I actually told this story last week, but I'll tell it again. One of my favorite game day stories was a friend of mine, actually the one of the designers of the game Omicron Protocol that we were talking about. He came over
Hmm.
for a party at my house, and it was an all day. It was a birthday party thing. It was we are going to do heavy games early in the day. Then by the end of the night, we're going to be doing like joking hazard, and you'll come. So come whenever you want, based on that.
Okay.
And good friend of mine, he doesn't play games. Like he likes Mysterium. That's about as heavy as he gets.
Okay.
Um, but he wanted to be there the whole day, and so he sat down to play this brand new 4X game. And like he didn't know what the heck was going on. And so like he could have been a total turd and that would have been no fun for anybody. But
Right.
he's like just kind of going through doing the stuff and he's like looking over at Bernie. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's like, well, you can do this. He's okay, I'll do that. And I had to go over
Hmm.
like I'd say the end of the story from last week, I said I go over and check on Kent, like you having fun? He's like, I don't know. He's like, Do you want a drink?
I don't
Yeah.
know, he says. Well, yeah, I was gonna say there's ways to facilitate it.
He's like, I don't really know what's happening. I was like, you want another drink? He's like, yeah. At the end, I was like, was it fun? He goes, I had 3 drinks. That's a win. You know,
Bingo.
yeah, just gotta go through. Um, But that is from the point. So my next question, we've already kind of touched on it a little bit, is there are definitely the times when that optimal play is just great, even when you're not doing it. There's that moment when someone has the play, you're like, oh my gosh, that is an amazing play. And actually, I just played a game of Battlestar Galactica where I had that moment,
Yeah.
and I was halfway through the game, became a Cylon, and we were playing actually one over the max player count. So we
Hmm.
shuffled in some extra because in the first time in the history of parties, everybody came, like everybody, and we're all adults. It's like that was weird. So
How did
we
that
actually
work?
yeah, so we had too many players. And we're going around, and everyone was just sure that I was going to be a Cylon because I'm that kind of person. I always want to be the Cylon. That's just
Yeah,
who
I
I
was
am.
gonna say I want to be.
Yeah. And so we're good going around. And when I first became, I was the first person to play, and I was in a great spot where I could reveal right now and really hurt us. But I didn't, you know. And I waited. Someone said, oh, if he's a Cylon, so I didn't do it. I set the stage. Long time to get all the way back around, and I convinced somebody else that clearly it's not me. Like I had the chance, I didn't do it, and so the admiral had just revealed, and now basically the next player was able to choose who was going to be the next admiral because it could throw myself or the other pilot in the brig.
Hmm.
His choice, and he was just he's like, I was like, no, it can't be me because I did this. Like, you're right, it must be this one. Thank you. Gave me the admiral, and I was playing Anders, who has the ability you can set one die however you want. The next player, I convinced him to give me an XO, which gives you, two actions. First thing I did, I nuked all the civilian ships and was able to set the die to an 8, wiped them all out. Second action, revealed, blew apart of and we lost. They came back and won.
Oh wow.
But everybody, even myself, was like, that was the most amazing play we've seen, in a long time. And I thought about it for a long time, setting this thing up. Like that was an optimal play.
Hmm.
And that was a great moment. Everyone thought that was a great moment. And so sometimes that happens. And when I see that, that's fantastic. But what's the flip side of when that optimal play is just the worst?
Well, it's hard to follow that up. Um,
Well, I don't mean as a specific example. I just had that one come to my mind because it just happened, and I feel like I should never play Battlestar again because I'm never going to top that.
no, and you know what? That's the kind of story that keeps us coming back to these games to try and emulate or replicate that sort of experience. Um, I guess I guess my thought on optimal play would be slightly different. That's a phenomenal example of one seed being planted
Mhm.
and being nurtured to this big crescendo of look what I've done. Um, you did have to think each turn. How am I gonna? What am I gonna do this turn to make sure that this still comes to fruition? What am I gonna do the following? So to say, what's the opposite? I mean, I guess an obvious opposite would be if it didn't work, and if people were still like, "Nah, I don't. I'm not buying what Will's selling here. I think he's a silent, and it doesn't pan out." But I think maybe more so in a way that you had this epic experience. It's fun for you because you got to see this thing happen, but it's fun for everybody else because they got minds blown and they still got to like fight their way, claw their way back into the game. Where it can be disastrous is if you're playing, and I think that for me an optimal the idea of sitting down and trying to play the game as best as I can comes more into play with Euro style games where there's more interactivity with each mechanism. Do X so Y happens. Plant the seed to get the wood to build a house to produce a meeple, right? And you have to think a few turns ahead. I think the opposite of your fun scenario is when somebody's taking too much time. I think maybe AP is the biggest side effect from someone trying to min max or someone trying to
Yeah, when
optimally
they're
plan
mathing
out.
out in those Euro games where all the scoring is out there, and so they're mathing out everybody's score every time, and it's just yeah,
Exactly.
it's slow, and it's kind of what I referenced earlier. Like I never do it, and then every now once in a while I'm like, hold on, this is my moment. I'm gonna figure out the way. I'm gonna win with the dumb cats, or whatever it is, and but there are the people that the fun for them is literally making the very best mathematical play every turn.
Right. It's
And
seeing the tree of decisions, with all the branches going off of it and saying, okay, so I can go this way and that'll yield versus this way. And you know what? That is fun and that's satisfying. You and I are probably the type where, okay, I got to make sure, trying to be the host here, make sure things go smoothly. So I'll look at that tree with its 5 branches. I'll get rid of one of the branch. And well, that's obviously not good. This one's not as good either. So it's one of these three, and I just pick one.
yep. One of
I
my
could sit there
favorite
for
things I
3
do now
minutes
is I
and
will, especially if I played a game a lot more,
mhm,
like oh, Merchant's Cove. That's a bad example because everyone's doing their own thing. But um, I'll just pick a path I've never done before.
and try and maximize the
Yeah,
benefit of
I'll
going
just
down that path, sure. And
yeah,
that's also gonna narrow down your decisions a bit because, like, well, I
mhm.
don't need stone because I'm going the wood route. I don't need sheep. I'm just using
Well, hold on,
Catan
hold on, hold on. You
references.
always need sheep. You always need sheep.
Oh, you get my point though.
Yeah.
Once you say I'm going to go down this path, well, then you can start to disregard things. There might be a time where the optimal play might have included an action that does that, and you're like, no, 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 I'm going to go heavy on this aspect of the game. It can be fun. It can open you up to a new strategy, and it can narrow down it can prune the decision tree to narrow your decisions down to one or two, and someone like you or I, or someone who's been gaming for a while, and those listeners, I'm sure, could go, well, yeah, if I narrow it down to one or two, well, obviously one, two or three decisions, well, then it becomes much quicker, and I can easily make that optimal play in the path that I've chosen for this game. I agree. I think it's a really good way to still be able to play with optimal turns and decision making while not overwhelming yourself to the extent that you're kind of dragging down the table and dragging out the game.
Yeah, and I think I have no data behind this, but I think there's been a little bit of a push for in a lot of Euro games to have more of it be simultaneous or close to simultaneous. Because
Hmm.
if we're all doing our own little things at the same time, that suddenly cuts down on some of that thinking. Yes, I will still be waiting for, Sally over there who likes to think about everything when I'm done, but not nearly as long as when I have to wait 5 minutes for you to take your turn. And then there's Sally who's taking 5 minutes on her turn. And then Fred, we all know Fred, he's taking 7 minutes on his turn. And like
Hmm.
suddenly it's now been 30 minutes since I last did anything. Then it comes to me, I'm like, done. You know.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That can certainly
Yeah. And
certainly ruin an
I think that's
experience.
just coming back to what we keep talking about. It's group dynamics. Who are you playing with, and what kind
Hmm.
of person are they, and then kind of picking those games to give everybody what they want. You know.
Absolutely. There are times where there's times where I think that a fun game day is going to revolve around sitting and thinking. And I'll use Brass for an example. Brass, Birmingham, or Lancashire. They're not overly complex games. They're not super simple, but they're very deep in that what you're going to do this turn needs to directly impact what you have planned to do the next turn. And you should probably be thinking about what that's going to yield 2 turns from now. And everybody at the table's doing that. And it can be delicate. You can't slip up somewhere and you can't miss out on the turn order. If I do this, what are they going to do? Part of the fun, some of the meat of that is whenever you get to think about what are my opponents going to do, and can I correctly anticipate that? If we water it down to just chess is a remarkably simple game. It's one of the most popular games. It doesn't need anybody to defend how great it is. But it's fun because you actively have to think ahead and you actively have to think about what is my opponent going to do? Can I correctly guess it? And if they do it, are they going to correctly guess what I'm going to do in response? This happens a lot in Magic the Gathering too, in upper tiers, upper skill levels of Magic the Gathering. It's knowing the game so well, knowing the scenario so well that you've you've seen, I said it before, the nuance within the nuance, and to play with somebody at that same skill level. Not that I was ever at that skill level, but to play with someone that understands a game
No,
like
you are number 9.
right.
Number 9.
I don't know if that story made it on or not, but yes, I was number 9. But a game like Brass, brass isn't going to be fun if you're sitting down and you're playing with three new players or three players that have only played it once or twice. If you've played it 100 times, brass is going to be especially fun when you're at a tournament because the rewarding sensation that you get isn't just from winning the game; it's from outthinking another human. It's from outplaying another human, and the not woe is me pity party that you get from a loss is that you can acknowledge that, like, wow, they made some great, they outplayed, they thought, they saw what I was going to do. You never get to, you never just walk away going, well, rolled a three. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
you can walk away from the game and go, I know what I would do differently.
And
And
then if you
that's,
you can even have like my wife and but my friend Matt again, his fiance, they'll say so we sometimes we'll have debriefing sessions. Like we'll
Mhm.
finish, but he's like, what did you, oh, you did that, and and that is that's a ton of fun. The total
Yes.
sidebar, a game that you should probably check out. I mentioned the list that we had called Coloma, and
Hmm.
the reason that I love it so much, and I've again people have heard me say this before, is it's all about that. It's knowing what you should be doing,
Hmm.
but you know that I know. And you can ask King Scott, and he probably knows this as an actor from The Lion in Winter. Great line. I know. You know I know. I know you know I know. Eleanor knows we know it. We're a knowledgeable family, but it's that fun because what that does is suddenly you're making a stupid play because they don't expect you to do that. And suddenly that stupid play is the good play. And
Right. It's the game within the
yep.
game.
And Coloma is not all of it, but is all about that because it's got a little mechanic where there's one of the five different actions that you can select,
Hmm.
and each of those actions you get to do two things, a top action, a
Okay.
bottom action. But whatever action the most people pick is a bust. You only get
No
to do the
one's going to
top
get
action, boom
gotcha.
or bust. And so it's all about it's like you look around the table and see what people have. You're like, well, clearly Patrick wants to do this. I want to do that. We both know that we want to do that. And so we both know that it's going to be a bust if we do that. And then, of course, we both wind up trying to outsmart the other one, both do the same different thing. We now both busted again and been suboptimal.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think for me, that's the most fun. But in my brain, you start to not be optimal to be optimal.
It's weird.
When you go down
It's
that
weird how
rabbit
that
hole,
happens.
like which is fun. And that's its own moment of great moments when suddenly Patrick has done something that's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Oh, that was a great move. You
And
know,
yet sometimes it is a case of overthinking to the extent that you actually outthink yourself. You take it one step too far, and what you thought was going to happen or thought you could pull off doesn't work out. And again, that's part of the fun. I think maybe the difference between someone who plays optimally and someone who I'm just playing for fun. Well, we're both playing for fun. Their fun comes from a different space, and it's not a laugh out loud fun. It's not a high five your buddy's fun. It's maybe instead of fun, the word should be rewarding. Very rewarding. It's an earned sensation, and I think there are definitely games that capture that beautifully, and they're amongst my favorite. Twilight Imperium's not one of those games.
yeah, well, it's okay because you probably have half an hour between every turn, so you got plenty of time, right?
Plenty of time. We can play a little game off to the side.
Yeah. Funny story. I was on a stream once of
Hmm.
a game, and I'm not going to mention it, but it was so long between turns. I had someone else was there because it was a little digital stream, and someone else was helping me with the game,
Hmm.
and I had this small two-player game I had to review also, and it was so long between turns. We just literally set it up, and I would take my turn, and we would play a whole game of this other thing before it would come back to me. I'd take my turn, play a whole game before it would come back
But
around.
come back to the turn. My
Yeah.
goodness.
I mean, see, I could have been trying to play optimally, but instead I was like, yeah, let's throw some dice, whatever. you know. Um, so the last question we actually also talked about it, but if in case you wanted to add anything to it,
Sure.
was does the environment where you're playing make a difference to this idea of playing optimally or suboptimally? Like we talked about, like if you're hosting a game meetup, like and you're teaching the game and you just taught me how to play, you've been helping me all along. Maybe you don't make that optimal move to smash me into space dust.
Hmm.
I mean, you should. You should. Teach me a
That's
lesson.
right.
But maybe you don't. So when for you do you feel like, you know what, this is my time that I'm gonna be at my best, and everything be damned, time be damned, I'm doing this.
Well, I think the primary, we'll say the primary atmosphere that I'd like to create is one where the other players know the game and they know it well. I'll give a good example. We were playing the Lobsters. A couple of those guys, they had the app for Through the Ages, New Story of Civilization, as did I, and we would play on there all the time. We would get it to the table, and if those 3 were coming over and we're gonna play Through the Ages, it was not a, "Hey, guys, we're gonna do some drinking, we're gonna have some laugh out loud." And Through the Ages doesn't provide a whole lot of those moments anyway. It's a very calculating, thinking game.
Yeah, it's
Um,
for me the funny things are at the end of the game. We look back, it's like I had space travel and never got past coal and bronze.
it can happen. It
Yeah.
can, and you know what? I almost never go past iron. Well, that's neither here nor there. The point being, you can take a complex game, and if everybody knows how to play it, and everybody's on a similar skill level, then you can set up your game night with your friends and find that experience, get that rewarding fun as opposed to laugh out loud and high five fun. And I think a lot of gamers that have experienced it, that's sort of their that's what they seek out. That's what they seek to replicate in their game days. Now, obviously, not every game day is going to cater to that experience. If you have new players, well, you can introduce something that's a little more. We'll say a game that introduces chaos, but not talking about the games per se. The environments. I think a lot of it comes down to who are you playing with. How many times have they played? Are they strangers? Do you know them? Your example with Ankh. If I go and try and play Ankh with a bunch of strangers, it's going to be really, really awkward. Or an aggressive game, like I don't know, name an aggressive game. It's going to
Oh
be
well, I'll
really
say
weird.
one of my favorites. Red Dragon Inn is highly aggressive.
It's going to be really difficult to sit down with strangers and play a game where we're basically going to pick on each other. We're going to be mean. Diplomacy. We're going to backstab each other for the next several hours. I had a friend one time, well, a store owner in Little Washington around here, and he said, I asked him about diplomacy. This was probably in the late 90s. I wasn't into games yet. And I was, "Hey, Anthony, what's going on with that?" He said, "Oh, it's a great game. You need 7 friends, and none of them will be your friend when it's over." I was like, "Oh," and I've always been enamored with it since. But that's the kind of thing you need to know your group, and I think that the environment is sort of secondary to that. Obviously, as you said, a meetup, a coffee shop, it's going to be a little bit different. The people, I think, are the biggest difference in whether or not you have an opportunity to sit down with the intent of trying to play an optimal game.
I completely agree with that, and I also know it's starting to get a little late there for you. So
Oh,
let's
we're
move
getting up there.
ahead. We're gonna move ahead into the game, our feature game we're talking about,
Yeah, let's do
which
it.
is Clank. And I say it like
Yes.
that because there's an exclamation mark at the end of it. And there's many different derivations. But before we can do that, it's
Hmm.
everyone's favorite sponsor bump. Here comes the commercial, everybody. Boom. And now, a word from our sponsor. Play some games?
I just can't play games with you today.
Not tonight. They just dropped Far Cry 6 and I need to get into that.
Yeah, nah, mate. Sorry, I gotta put those prawns in the barbie.
No.
No.
I don't think we can.
There's a football game on, right?
Yeah, we gotta play football.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But I've got that really important unboxing of Spider-Man Uno. Look, it says it's fast and fun for everyone.
I wish I could, but I have rehearsal.
I would. Just one small problem. You're 5,000 miles away.
Yeah, sorry, man. I can't. I'm heading over to the Milk Shack today. They are having a sale to die for.
Tonight's the night for my noggin waxing.
Sorry, I can't. I have to water my artificial plants.
I guess no one wants to play games with me.
Hey, you want to play some board games?
Well, how do I do that?
There's a whole community of people waiting to play with you.
Really? I can come right now?
Right now, but particularly on Tuesday nights.
Okay, let's go! Sovereignty. Play board games in a 3D environment on any device. Play smarter. You can find more information about Sovereignty in the description of this podcast or video. All right, everybody, so we are back, and now we're going to talk about Clank. And so when Clank was proposed And I said, "Oh, we can do that." Patrick's answer was he has played everything Clank. And so
Just about.
to tell us what the heck is Clank briefly, and then we'll talk about what we like, what we don't like, whatever.
Sure. Well, I think a lot of gamers will be familiar with Clank. Clank is, we'll call it a deck building dungeon crawling game where everybody's going to start with the same 10 cards and you're going to be starting at the same space on the board. This is a deck builder with a board. And the objective of the game is you're going to be using your deck and purchasing cards and acquiring cards that get mixed into it. Good old deck building. You're going to use that to move about the dungeon, to gain swords, to defeat monsters that you might run into. All the while, you're trying to acquire coin, you're buying cards that are worth points, and most importantly, at some point, you're going to grab an artifact and get out, get back to the starting position. Well, wait a minute, why wouldn't we just be buying more cards? Well, all the while, you're making clank or noise. Some of these cards, some of the base ones that are just in your opening deck, they make noise, and that's represented by little cubes, or in this case, Clank. You put them into a Clank area, and occasionally a card is going to flip up into the market, or something's going to trigger a dragon attack. There's a little track at the bottom of the board that has the dragon. It says, here's how many cubes you have to pull out of the bag. Uh-oh. You have a bag with a bunch of black cubes in it. You're going to take all the Clank that's been made, all that little bit of noise represented by those cubes. You're going to put those in the bag. You're going to give it a big old shake. You're going to remove some number of cubes, and that number will go up as the game goes on. So if black cubes are removed, well, no big deal. They don't go back in the bag. They're removed. There are fewer now. They're misses, we'll call them. But if your color cube is removed, you took a damage. You can't take 10 damage or you die. So that's why you got to get in, grab an artifact, and get out. Furthermore, once one player is out, or any number of players, once one person's out, they're going to be doing an additional dragon attack, pulling some number of cubes on their turns. And then once the second player is out, well, that's twice now. So I got to go. Both my opponents are out of the dungeon. So I go dragon attack, dragon attack. All the while, those black cubes are coming out. They're not going back. So the probability of seeing your own cubes get pulled goes up as the game goes on. A deck building dungeon crawler with a bit of a timer built in. Phenomenal game.
So I have it's not interesting, boring history with Clank. I say, well, I have an interesting, no, it's not, it's boring. So I'd heard
Please
about
do tell.
And I was always interested in it. And a few years ago, I was like, okay, I'm going to buy it because this is around the time when I was just mostly playing games solo, wasn't reviewing stuff at the time. And someone had, and I was actually doing a show out of town, and they put me up, but I'm just there by myself for a lot of the time. And so I wound up with Clank in Space. And because I wasn't sure which one. I normally like fantasy far more than sci-fi stuff. But I was like, "Oh, Clank in Space is better. It's better. It's better." I was like, "Okay, I got it." It was fine. And then earlier this year, I have not played this game in 2 years, so I sold it. And then I was like, "Man, I kind of wish I had Clank, but I like fantasy better." And I wasn't sure, and I was posting on Facebook about it. I was like, do I want to get it? I don't know. And then a lovely subscriber reached out and said, I have one that I haven't played in 2 years. It's base Clank. It's got the Mummy's Curse,
I think it is.
Yeah, Mummy's Curse. Yeah, Mummy's Curse and the Sunken Treasures.
Yep.
I'll send it to you for shipping. I was like, really? I was like, oh my, yes, please, yes. And so now I got that. Played it a couple times. All about it. Really excited. And then I went out and I was like, it doesn't quite have everything. What do I need? And I got the adventuring party, which makes every player slightly different, and everyone has their own overpowered BS that they can do. And just really, really happy with it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we finished Betrayal Legacy. And we're like, well,
I
we
know
need
where you're
something
going
new.
with this.
And then I joined the Board Game Geek Secret Santa. And so I made my list, and I was like, I'll just put Clank Legacy on there. I'll just put it on there. Maybe there'll be a deal. Because, it's like $100. Maybe there'll be a deal somewhere. And 2 days later, Clank Legacy showed up at my door.
It was meant to be.
Yep. And so I got it. I painted all the miniatures. And I told my wife, I was like, hold on, I'm painting. Go watch your show. Whatever. I'm painting.
Do more homework.
Yeah, whatever you're doing. I got to paint these things. So I am super excited about Clank right now. We just, after we finished our Betrayal Legacy game, we had time. So we just played a game of, Clank. And it's interesting to me that in Clank, you can get cards that you're only using to buy more cards,
Hmm.
which is the one aspect of deck builders that I don't like. I don't like if I'm playing like Dominion, I can have a card that's just going to be points, or it's just
Like gold.
yeah,
Oh,
I
you
don't
mean
like that. Like,
why
yeah,
is that?
I find it boring. Like, I want to do something, and Clank lets you do that, and you're moving around using cards to move around, and because there are just a few of those cards that let you do that, but because that is so exceedingly rare, it doesn't bother me. And that's the thing about deck builders that bothers me, is when that happens. I mean, there's plenty of deck builders that don't do that, and I love those, and I will
Sure.
play those forever. But I guess what I'm trying to say is everything else about Clank is so fun to me. I'm willing to overlook the thing about deck builders that I hate.
I understand. Okay. I think deck building in and of itself is engine building, and if you boiled it down to just I'm going to buy coins, well, more purchasing power, and I'm going to buy points. Well, that in and of itself is a game. Really, it is. When you incorporate the board and all these other movements, all these other variables, then yes, you're going to be building on to, it. And it is going to make something like those, purchasing power cards. I'm just going to buy this so that I can buy bigger things later. Yeah, I can see that watering it down, but I kind of like that. It's saying, you know what, I am going to, we're going to become, there's going to be more asymmetry between you and I, because I'm able to purchase higher value things, and I'm going to play a longer game. You're getting things that are going to help you more now. It's just one more strategy, be it to your point, perhaps a more boring one.
Well, but
Interesting.
I think it becomes less boring because of the rest of the theme of the Clank, right? It's like,
That's true too.
I'm doing this with a purpose. Like, I'm doing this because I really want to get, because sometimes early in the game that really expensive card shows up,
Hmm.
and no one can buy that garbage. Like, no one, it'll be 30 minutes before anyone can buy that. But
Right.
you're like, I'm going to get that. It's going
So
to be
you can
mine.
target it that way and buy those the gold.
Yeah, I'm going to get that little cat that will let me trigger a dragon attack every time it comes out. Or
Mr. Whiskers.
yes, Mr. Whiskers. Everyone hates Mr. Whiskers so much, which is great. But it has a purpose to it,
Hmm.
and I think that's what to me makes Clank special. Is that I'm sure it's not the first one, but it's the first deck builder that I played that made deck builder a mechanic in the game, not the game.
Sure.
And I think that's what does it. And then of course it has for me that, well, one, it has this lovely tongue-in-cheek humor.
Mr. Whiskers.
Yeah. Damn, Mr. Whip. It's always a cat. As it goes through, and it's got fun art and stuff, but it has this adventure, fun, and a bit of chaos to it, because you're reaching in that bag, and especially at the end of the game, every time you pull something out of that bag, you're like, oh God, I hope it's not me, but God, I hope it's Patrick so much.
There's a real tension. There's that game captures tension as well as any game I've ever played. And there have been so many games that I've played since Clank, and yet I could break out Clank and it's still going to get me on the edge of my seat with ease compared to other games that are attempting to do the same thing, because of that bag building. Because what am I going to draw this turn? This card lets me draw two, and I really need one more boot. Did I get it? I'm racing someone to get that 20-point artifact. Did I get there? Is he going to leave the dungeon now? Oh no, we'll be on the clock already once he leaves. Every
because you're always you wind up playing with that person. Like, I'm just gonna take the 5 and go.
Get the 5 and get out. There's
What are you
always that
doing?
one person. And you know what? I like that. I brought this up on Level Up a bunch of times. I love when a game lets players dictate when the end of the game is going to be. Clank has inevitability. If everyone just hangs out, eventually you will all die anyway, even if you're playing it super safe near the top. But that somebody does have the chance to just go in, go out, and then somebody else says, I think that's just a beautiful mechanic in a game, because then it's going to change based on the players at the table. They're not only just interacting with the various mechanisms within the game and interacting with each other and racing to various spots, but also somebody can decide at any point, you know what, I'm going to start the countdown. We're gonna be done here in 4 turns because I think you guys can't catch me.
And then you get to see it around the table, of everybody else's play style. Like, like the last time that we played, like that happened. One guy ran and I was like, was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go get the backpack. I'm going to go get another artifact before I try to get out of here. And that, created this moment with another guy who was doing the same thing. And I was hurt. He wasn't very hurt. And then just suddenly, he was green. I think every cube was green for like the next 4. Like, and then we dumped out the bag at the end of the game. It was all blue cubes left, which I was green. It was just, but it was this lovely moment. Was I was like, well, I deserve to die now. Nope. Let me pull some other bag. Oh, sorry, Tom. Sorry, Tom. But that's the level of that chaos I like, but that tension, because by the end of it, even me who was benefiting knew this cannot keep happening.
Right. Exactly.
But it can't.
Exactly. You start to play the probabilities, and it becomes really hard to keep track of how many cubes you yourself have in the bag compared with other people, how many black cubes are left. So they make it very difficult to actually calculate that. And yet it's something that you do have to be mindful of. I never know how much Clank I have I have in the bag, but I have an idea. If that bag is
you can look at I got a small stack here. It's probably all me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I could count my cubes and say, okay, so I must have 7 in the bag. But generally speaking, we got to pull 4 cubes out. Oh, none were mine. Oh, we got to pull 4 cubes out again. Whew, none were mine. Well, I might not be doing the math. I don't know how many of the other players' cubes there are or how many black cubes are left. But I do know that we just pulled 8 and none of them were mine. So it's one more thing to be mindful of in a game that already has the interactivity between the players extended all the way down to triggering the end of the game, and deck building, which quite frankly, I think deck building, I haven't said it on the show yet, but I'll say it. I think it's my favorite mechanism in a game, especially when it's not the game. You said it, when it's part of a game. There's so much skill in a deck building game, just in the probabilities, like crafting your deck, knowing how much game is left. You don't want the card that's going to add Clank. Some cards will give you a tremendous benefit, but they add Clank when you use them. You might not want to buy that early on. Now, that's not hard to suss out, but every single card needs to be valued based not only on how many times am I going to draw it, based on how many turns are left, but also, does this cater to the strategy that I'm doing? I'm not going to buy a card that's going to help me fight guys if it's the only one in my deck. I'll see it twice. Whoop-de-doo. Maybe I start the game and that's my strat. There's so many routes you can take for what is honestly an hour and a half game.
Yeah. I love it. It's interesting with the different Clanks that you play, because I have not played original Clank, I guess, enough to know for sure, but in Clank in Space, there's a lot of synergies that you can create.
Yes.
Like you get if you have a crystal, all these cards are going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go get a crystal, or maybe you're just not going to worry about it and just not worry about those cards and do something else. And I think that's all. The other thing about I think Clank that's really, I think, clever is that each of the different versions is so well done in the sense that you can pick up any of them and learn the differences in 2 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't take
but
much.
They're enough different that they feel like different experiences to me. Like they're in Space is different enough from original Clank that I can say I prefer this one more than the other one, because it is different enough, yet it took me 9 seconds to learn how to play original Clank after playing Clank in Space. And I'm assuming it's going to be the same thing when I finally play the Sunken Temple and the Mummy's Curse.
I know with the Sunken Treasures, you get the chance to punch instead of punching the cultist, punching the goblin in the regular one, it's a goldfish, I think. You get to beat up on him. Well, it does change just enough. So you have sunken areas. In order to go through them, one of the market items that you can purchase is a little scuba diving helmet. You don't have to do that at all. You just don't have to pursue that, and you could still win the game. It's one more strategy option that you have. There's certain things that you can't kill unless you're in a flooded room. It's kind of like a forest, but it's a flooded room. You got to stop when you're in there, or you can't go in it without it's been a while. But nevertheless, the point being, you don't have to do it at all, and you can still win the game. Or you can say, you know what, I'm gonna try and dabble in that route and see if I can capitalize on it. Just a phenomenal expansion to an already great game.
And now, have you played Clank Legacy?
I'm glad you asked that. I played it twice today. My little brother has a cabin in the middle of nowhere. There's a lot of pockets of Pennsylvania that are officially the middle of nowhere, and he lives in one of them. Well, you have to go over train tracks in the country and then turn to the gravel road that's literally next to the train tracks and go down the gravel access road to find his house. I'm telling you, you could not find it if you were looking for it, if you didn't know it was there. So we're out at his cabin, and we've been doing a Clank Legacy campaign. It's getting a little rough to keep going because my little brother's got 2 jobs now, and he's trying to finish the game. He's the least gamer friend, well, sibling, I guess, in this case, of the people that I play games with. So there's kind of like a, hey man, are you willing to? Are you able to? Yeah, I guess we play that day. So we're on game 8. I think we have 2 left to go. Now, obviously, we don't want to spoil Clank Legacy. I suppose it's still new enough that we don't want to give things away, but you are going to see you're going to see changes to your board, and that's not giving anything away because that's expected. There hasn't been a
First
legacy
thing that happens when you open the
game.
thing is a big old sticker box is your packet. It says don't open them, but they're going to be on the
Spoiler,
board.
the
You
board
open up
will
the
change.
rule book. Half the rule book is empty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it has a lot of the tropes that you would expect in Clank, well, from any legacy game. Let's put it that way. It has what you would anticipate there. It lets you do things to the Clank game that you couldn't do to a base game box and put it back on the shelf for the next group to just pick up and get back into it. Spoilers or no? And I'm not talking deep spoilers, but simple spoilers.
Keep it light, and if I start panicking because we haven't even started yet, I'll be like, stop.
So everybody starts with the same deck of 10 cards in a game of Clank. There will come a point where you may have the opportunity to modify your starting 10 in some capacity. So asymmetry in your game, it may be introduced based on the starting 10 cards. They have a lot of fun with that, and they found ways that they can make it different each game. Various parts of that board, and I won't spoil anything here. I'll tell the listeners, take out your Clank board, set it down in front of you, and look at that board. Anything on it is fair game. If that was a Clank Legacy board, there isn't a segment of that board that is not fair game to be modified in some way. So nothing is like, expect the unexpected. If there was a part that's like, well, there's not going to be a sticker for that, there might be. There very well might be. You could tell that they took their time to make sure that they were overturning every stone that they could. Can we mess with that? I bet we can, and they do. And it's a lot of fun, all in this game that I already love so much. For them to be able to introduce things they do, and even little legacy things that have nothing to do with Clank, like, oh, maybe you'll get to name a card. That's so much fun.
Yep. Yeah,
I can't wait to hear your thoughts on it.
We had just so much fun with that, and it was weird because I went into Betrayal Legacy thinking, okay, we're gonna go deep and thematic, and because I missed the first 2 games, and the first card that I pulled that had been named, it was called the Awesome Spear. I was like, oh well, that's the game that we're playing, I guess.
Oh, I got the Awesome Spear.
I was like, the Awesome Spear from 1568. But it is fun because we had these moments where we would start naming cars specifically based on the experience that we had.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am so excited to start playing this. We're not going to get to do it start until January or something, which is not really a long time away, but it feels a long time away.
Well, knowing that you're going to be getting into a game that is multiple sessions, and you said with your Betrayal Legacy, it took a long time to complete it. This one we started a year ago after we finished Seafall. Of all Legacy games to have finished, we made it through Seafall.
I've never even heard of that one.
It was kind of a bust of a game. It was Rob Davio, I want to say 2016, had all the hype at the conventions that year, and it just, I know you can find it now on Amazon for $11. It was probably MSRP $80. It was a flop, and for a number of reasons. And we'll do an episode that's spoilerific, all about our thoughts on Seafall at some point. Clank is not without, Legacy is not without its flaws. It's phenomenal. We in our Seafall campaign and in other legacy games that I've played, oftentimes they'll try and introduce narrative, and Clank Legacy does that, and it's done well. I appreciate them having the narrative in it, but there does come a point where Clank is just a beautiful game based on that. It's relatively quick moving. You know what you're doing. You're thinking of your next turn. Buy the card, get the shuffle, draw the 5. There are times where legacy games are going to pause for you to read some story, pause to adjust some stickers, or add some, do something that's legacy like. It's like, oh my goodness, we've had games where if it was 2 hours, I feel like 45 minutes of it was reading story and doing stickers and marking things up. That said, I'm willing to play this one again immediately after we finish it. We've had a blast with it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Now, the thing that was still hard all the way through Betrayal Legacy is ripping up a card or something.
That bothers you? I hear that often.
And we went deep, like we didn't throw it away, like we ripped it in half.
Yes.
Like just rip, and it would go around. Then at the end, after you finish Betrayal Legacy, there is a thing that has been with you the whole game, and it's like, and now destroy this thing. And like all of us were like, oh.
Well, then it's real. That has emotional impact. You get invested into that thing. That's something that you can't replicate, pulling random one-off box off the shelf and playing one game and then putting it back on the shelf. That's what makes it a legacy game. That's what I love about it.
It took me playing that and then getting to do a preview of Divinus from Lucky Duck. It's their tile laying, dice rolling thing, and you put stickers on the boards and stickers on the tiles and actually on the dice. And everyone has unique dice by the end of the game. Like,
cool.
It's not even a spoiler for that, but you might have a die that is this die could be an 8 or a 2 on your 6-sided die on this one face.
Okay.
And so it was only two games of that, and so we played them both in one sitting. We did the whole thing, but it didn't hurt me as much as I thought it would. Now I tell you what does hurt me is if you put that sticker in the book and you get the little pucker.
But putting a sticker on the board right on the seam so that it never it folds up in the board. Oh, there are things about it that do bother me, but yeah, I love the fact that they put you in a position where you have to get rid of a component or alter a component forever. That's what makes it a legacy game. I think most people by now, they know if they would love that or hate it, and I love it.
I love the whole the term now. The people call it a green legacy. It's the resettable. You can.
So we're thinking like Oath, like a game where it'll change each time, but you're not actually destroying any components, etc.
Yeah, I think so. I was thinking, oh gosh, I can't even think of now. They were all in my head now. I can't. Well, even like Divinus, they have recharge packs. So you can get a recharge pack, or
Charterstone has a recharge. Yeah,
you can get the removable stickers.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're a cheap butt like me, and Jaws of the Lion, that little map board, that's dry erase.
There you go.
And so because I was like, well, I'll just sell this when I'm done. And I could sell a copy that doesn't have stickers on it. So I'm sitting there with a little dry erase marker all over everything.
Somebody getting there's all these smudges of dry erase marker.
How dare you, sir? I will use some hand sanitizer and get that off.
My answer for going green with my legacy games is that we'll keep all the pieces. Like if it says destroy, we'll cross it off with a marker. Oftentimes we'll tear them in half, but I'll take the insert in the box and I'll just chuck them underneath it. And 2 stories pertaining to this, one of which is the first legacy game that we completed, was Risk Legacy, and I'll put it in a picture frame.
Oh, that's cool.
As you can
see for people who are
me.
just listening, he's showing on his wall. He has a frame, and it's just a bunch of junk in a frame.
Yeah, basically, but it's a shadow box. It's a shadow box, so it's 3D, and I'll go and I'll take little pins and little things to make some stuff stick out more than others. So there's stacks of coins, so I'll take all of those components and basically make wall art. And it doesn't look like art, but it does. I mean, nobody's coming down to my basement not saying, "What's that?"
I can't wait till you played enough legacy games that you start putting it in the rental units.
Well, I'm running out. I got Seafall over there. I'm not going to show you that one because it's a mess in that corner. I didn't do enough cleaning. You said earlier today we're going to be on video, and normally with just a microphone. I have like furniture pads all around me. I have a microphone box that tries to keep the sound okay. I hope everything comes out nicely, but it's a mess over there. I'm not going to show you Seafall. The second story pertaining to that, though, and this might be going into spoiler territory. If you got to cut it, Will, that's okay. But it's a spoiler for a 10-year-old game. Risk Legacy's 10 years ago, and they're coming out with a new Risk Legacy.
I saw that, but apparently Davio's not involved at all.
I heard that as well, but I'm still excited. I'm sure that. I mean, the first one was good enough that, and people other than Davio have made good legacy games. I'm sure,
and they've had 10 years to work on it. So
exactly. Underneath, okay, the insert. When we would have to rip up a card, which Risk Legacy, of course, made you do, I'd pick up that insert and chuck it underneath there. So it was probably game 4 or game 5. I just like lift the edge a little bit, push the card in. You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. So I picked out that insert and I grabbed it in the middle and pulled the whole thing out, and I saw the envelope underneath there, and my mind exploded. I saw that envelope and it says, "Never open this envelope." So I have my friends over. We played game 8 or whatever it was of Risk Legacy, and I was like, "All right, guys, I know something." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Look what I found." So I pulled that off, and it was like, whenever they look in the box at the end of Pulp Fiction and they don't actually show you what's in there, it's just like this shine coming out. We're all adults. We're almost 40, but we're all in the basement like,
yeah. Actually, we had something similar in the Betrayal Legacy. We would do this whole thing. We were doing the same, throwing stuff under there, and then somebody said, "Go under the insert and get out the," and we're like, "What?"
Yes.
How did we not even? And we've been picking the dumb thing up. We didn't even know it was there.
I love it when games do that. I heard Grim Forest did that as well. There's something underneath the insert for Grim Forest.
It had like the false bottom of the thing.
Oh, clever.
The one I had, you actually had to. I don't remember if it was under the top or under the bottom, but it was literally a false bottom that you peeled.
So you take out the insert, it still looks like you're just looking at the bottom of the box.
Yeah.
Does it ever tip you off to that in your game? Like, is it in the rule book somewhere in Grim Forest, or is it just like someone had to find it out? I'm going to start ripping apart the boxes of all my games.
It was a long time. I would do unboxings. I don't do as many unboxings anymore, but where I would do that, and I'd be like, hold up, and I'd be taking stuff out and rubbing along the side, and people are like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, there could be a secret.
Got to see if there's something else in there."
I found a secret once in a game, so clearly they all have secrets. Clearly, with Clank, it's just a little bit of a love fest, though. I'm jealous
it
you've
is
almost finished Clank Legacy.
I can't wait to hear your thoughts when you get it started.
Gosh,
I hope you have a blast with it. Yeah.
I pushed aside everything else I was painting. I was like, I'm painting this. We're playing. Just in case we can play.
4 to do, yeah.
Yeah, just in case we can play now. It's got to be ready.
Do you have 4 people? We're doing ours with 3. Are you going to have? Is it going to be your wife? You're going to have 4. Our full complement.
So the Betrayal Legacy group was 5, but then one of them he only was able to come maybe a third of the time, and he's moving out of the state. So we're just this one because I thought about and I looked it up. I was like, it's only 4 players, guys. And I'm like, well, actually, so and so he's moving to Maryland, so
it'll work out anyway.
Yeah. So I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to have a drink, play some games at PAX.
Absolutely.
I'm going to get there and be like, I don't know who this guy is. Security, get this guy out of here.
You're going to snub me? Will, come on.
So everybody, you can check down in the description of either the video or the podcast. You can find a link to Level Up Board Game Podcast. You got to say all of it at once. You can't just call it Level Up. That's what plebeians do. Right?
The Level Up Board Game Podcast. Yes.
Yeah. And they are prolific. They have a lot of episodes. How many episodes I'm going to have to listen to by the time I finish this audiobook I'm on?
Thank you. We just recorded 40, episode number 40.
I've been doing this for 2 years. I'm on 17 now?
We do what we like to call a side quest. Goes off topic, or it's an interview with the designer. We want to feature their game specifically, so we'll give them their whole episode. Otherwise, we're bi-weekly, and every now and then we'll throw in one in between. So they're getting up there. We're starting the next season of the show and having a really good time doing it. So 40 in, and hopefully
at
another
least
big
4
number
more,
for
right?
this year. Yeah.
All right, and so, but before I let you go,
Yeah.
leave us all with your words of gaming wisdom.
Words of gaming wisdom. Okay. Oh, I actually have one. Scott does this to me at the end of our episodes, and I'm like, I have no idea. I don't know who said it. It might have been Rana Knizia, and I didn't tell you that the part of our shtick is that we really try and capture audience input. We'll do polls, we'll do surveys, but the biggest thing is we even invite people to submit their audio. I will edit it. I will treat it. And I'll say, hey, Carol from Waikiki wants to tell us about the game she's been playing. Somebody responded to one of our questions that we had about playing optimally. And I think he quoted Knizia in saying that the aim of the game is to win, but winning is not important. The aim is. And I thought, oh, that's. Love it. That's your words of wisdom.
Yeah.
It's kind of from me, but it's probably from Knizia.
It's okay. I'm going to edit out the whole thing movie where you credited Knizia, and so everyone's just going to assume that you're claiming that as your own. They're just going to fly in and be like, "How dare you?
How dare you do that?
Do you know how many games this man has made? What have you done? You've done 40 podcasts. He did 40 games last year.
I talk about games.
I talk about games not for a living."
No, definitely not for a living. It costs me money to talk about games.
Yeah, right. But there you have it, folks. That is this episode of Boards and Brews. Again, check the description for all the information. And still going on, you can get a free 60-day platinum membership to Sovereignty digital game platform. Just follow the information down in the description as well. Thank you to them again for being our sponsor. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, share, whatever it is you got to do on your podcast thing. And go check out Level Up Board Game Podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Oh, you're out in California. I thought you were in the Midwest somewhere. I had no idea.
No, I'm way too fancy to be in the Midwest. You kidding? Like I got a game that looks like popcorn. Like
that is fancy.
You're fancy here. Yeah, Slumlord, right?
Basically. I'm in a cold basement in southwestern Pennsylvania, and I have these old chairs down here. I always switch to one of the ones from upstairs because they don't creak, and I'm worried you're going to have a video with a whole bunch of chair creaks.
That's okay. You know, it's very cold here in San Jose. It's I mean,
yeah, I bet. Oh, I was down here in a t-shirt, and I said to my wife, I was like, I got to put on a hoodie or something. I'm like shivering down there. Did you get a copy of Gentle Rain when they were sending that when the company was?
No, I'm the one.
Oh, you're the one. Yeah, it seemed like everybody. I was like, why did we get this? We're not a thing.
Well, and the good thing about it is I have a friend, and she has a 5 and 8-year-old, and so now it's my paying her back for everything she's ever done to me. Like I just gave her kids a catapult game.
Oh, geez.
Like it literally has a catapult.
They're gonna find pieces all throughout the house. Oh, that's funny. Have you really not played that list I sent you? Because there's like Wingspan, Terraforming Mars. You've played those?
Nope.
Really?
I I've played the Wingspan app, and I gave my friend Wingspan for his birthday right before lockdown happened. And Terraforming Mars, I just can't get excited about it. And there's the one time I was gonna play was at Origins, and my buddy Matt, he signed up first, and then an hour later the slot was full. I was like, well, whatever, we can get a hold of it if you like it. And I did. I played the 3 other games in that 3.5 hour slot. When he came by after, I was like, how was it? He goes, it was 3.5 hours. We didn't finish.
It shouldn't be that long.
And I was
like, that would scare anyone away.
Nope. Hard pass. But yeah, I've heard of a lot of those games, but I really haven't played any of them. Yeah, he's cute.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. I mean, Scott. I don't know about that guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Scott. No, that guy's cute. Scott's, nice. Scott doesn't need to hear that. He is a handsome cat.